tell me your definition of work. And before you start typing your answers, I don't mean work as you perceive it to be. The topic of the presentation is work-life balance. So what that means is within the context of work-life balance, because everyone on this call, I'm 110% sure this is not the first time you're hearing work-life balance term, right? So you already know, you already have a preconceived notion of what that means. So in the context of that preconceived notion of what you think work-life balance mean, in the context of that term, how would you define work? So those on the teams start typing in, and I'm going to ask some of the people over here the same question. So anyone?
So work for me is to do office tasks for which we are getting paid.
Very good. So Ali is saying work for him, again, in the context of work-life balance terminology, is for him to do office tasks or things for which he's getting paid. Anyone else?
So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's anything that I enjoy working, enjoy doing, and not necessarily I'll be paid for it, but it can be even talking in the context of work-life balance. It can be anything, be it cycling, or be it doing groceries, or
Okay.
being at office. For me, there's it just comes down to if I'm enjoying it, that's it.
Okay. So again, you're giving a definition of the converted, and I hope in the end everyone defines work the way you are. But I think in the context of work-life balance term, what you're defining a lot of these things as, for me, I enjoy, so it's work. Actually, that's what, in this context, that's what life is. You know, they make a distinction between. So Vad's definition, he is giving his own definition, which I would say is contrary to how the term defines work, but that's a good definition. So hold on to that thought, and I hope in the end everyone thinks similarly to what Avad is saying. You've already defined work in the context of this term. So how would you define life?
Giving time to your family.
Giving time to family. So Naeem is saying family. Of course, he just got married, so giving time to his family. Yes, yes.
Family, friends, chasing hobbies.
Okay, so Tayyib is saying friends, chasing hobbies, so spending leisure time outside of work. Okay, anyone on the chat? Okay, all right. So now, in the context of the same, give me your definition of what work-life balance mean, right? So we have defined work as something, majority have defined work as something that you do to get paid. Life is something where you spend that paying, so it's family, leisure time. So now what about work-life balance? Can anyone define what do they mean by work-life balance?
To be in equilibrium state. To be in equilibrium state, जहाँ पर दोनों चीजें जो हैं वो
Right. So Tayyib is saying to be in equilibrium state between work and life. Okay, very good. Anyone else? So I guess that's anything on the chat yet?
not yet.
Again, okay, again meeting join. All right, so I think that's kind of self-explanatory, work, life, and balance. And Ali, can we reshare the slide? Perfect. Now,
There is another.
what is the purpose of it, right? So when we talk about work-life balance, having an equilibrium state between work and life, what would it achieve for us? Why do we even care?
There is another answer.
So what all of you have achieved so far is that you have said, you know, work is something that you get paid for, work is doing projects, work is doing tasks, and life is something which is not work. So hobbies, leisure, sports, traveling, spending time with friends. Now, in this photo, for those of us who are married, their definition of who's going for work and who's enjoying life will be different than those who are unmarried, right? So Asim Bhatti thinks this lady is lucky, she's going to work. Sorry, this lady is unlucky, she's going to work and the husband is going to enjoy time with kids. But those of us who are married, we know better. Uh, and with balance, as Aved said, it's about happiness, mental peace, and Naeem said it's satisfaction, and some of the people in the chat are pretty much saying the same thing, right? So again, let me just recap. So this term work-life balance is not a new term. It's a very old term. And this term, we keep coming across this term in our day-to-day life in IT field. because IT field is known to be, to have people who are workaholic and who ignore the families. So therefore, this term, although not specific to IT, but in IT field, we come across this term very frequently. Now, as a team, we all have defined what work means. We all have defined what life means, and we all have defined what is having a balance between the two, what that means. And we all agree that the purpose of this is to have happiness, joy, satisfaction, and so on and so forth. All right, now, here's the thing. This term is not new. Which camera am I on? This? Okay. So this term is not new. This is an old term. And still, here are some facts. People hate work. More than 70% of Americans hate work. Around 85% of the people in all our world hate work. 94% of Japanese workers are not engaged at work. What that means is they're not focused on work. So that again is an indication that they're not really excited about the work. In all the world, right, every majority of us, be it male or female, now both parents are usually working in today's fast life. We get up in the morning, we go and do something that we don't enjoy. At least 85% of us do not enjoy it. We spend time over there. We spend more time over there than we spend with our families, but we are not enjoying it. We are hating it. We are not engaged with it. And that's not the statistics in IT field or in Pakistan and America. That's across the world, all the world, right? Okay, now here's the fun part. If we are not enjoying it, right? So imagine that I'm playing two games, cricket and hockey, right? I'm spending my time between the two. I hate hockey. Well, then I must be enjoying cricket, right? I have to be an idiot to actually be hating both, because then why am I even doing it, right? So one would imagine that 94% of Japanese workers, if they're not engaged at work, at least they're engaged with other non-work activities, right? 15% of the people of the world who like work, other than those 15%, the rest of the 85%, well, should be enjoying time with the family, right? But here are the statistics. Now, in the end, once I explain these statistics, you have to take these statistics with a grain of salt. So I've given references. You can go to those references and actually read a little bit more about these statistics. If we were having fun outside of work, right? For those of us who are married, that would indicate we'll have a happy marital life, right? But the fact of the matter is, US has 44.62% divorce ratio, right? So what that means is in 2017, if 100 people were married, 44.62, well, let's call it 44 were divorces, right? Now, to read these statistics, you can't say that all those, out of those 100 people who got married in 2017, 44 ended up in divorce. That's not what these stats are. What these stats do is they calculate the number of marriages in that year, then they calculate the number of divorces in that year. Those divorces may not have happened from those 100 marriages. It might have happened someone 20 years ago got married and then got divorced in 2017, right? So that's how you read those stats, right? It's not to say that out of every 100 marriages, 44 in America will end up divorced. But this is still a fairly high percentage. South Korea. Now, the reason I put US and South Korea way up front is because US and South Korea both are known to be people who are workaholic. They're leading the world in a lot of really cool stuff. So you would imagine that, okay, fine, people are really, focused on their work. So hence the divorce rate is high. Although what you see on the left side is telling you that they're really not enjoying work that much either, right? So this divorce really is not because they're hating the work, right? This indicates that they're both hating both. They're hating work, they're hating non-work, right? So that's what it is telling you. Now, Spain and Italy are known to be, I would say that they are European desis, right? So if you have met any Italian, you would know what I'm talking about. They're generally easygoing, cool dudes. So you would imagine that these are the people who are not taking work that seriously. They're following the European, reasonable working time philosophy. And yet you could see that actually in Italy, the rate is divorce rate is higher than US and South Korea, right? And if you see Vietnam, that's where you have the least amount of divorces happening. Now, what is the conclusion over here? So Ali, can you click on the slide? Thank you. So the conclusion is that the old age, wisdom about work-life balance, which means you'll be happier in work and you will be happier in life if you only are able to, what Tayyib is saying, come up with an equilibrium between the two. The data is telling us that's not the case, right? Just trying to create an equilibrium between two hasn't worked for humanity and it is not going to continue to work. So therefore, what is our solution, right? So, and I'm going to propose a new solution. So that's what, when I look at all the solutions that companies and people are doing to help that equilibrium so that they can end up being happy, here is the solution, right? So they're trying to improve, they're trying to give incentive in the work life so that people would somehow enjoy the work. And as someone earlier said in the chat, that if you are happy at your work, you will be happy at your non-work activities as well, which I think is true for all of us, right? So our solution is that to make us happy, uh, the companies are saying, I'm going to give paid maternity leaves, right? So I think this should be maternity. That's not me. I've taken it from somewhere else. But and I think maternity leaves is a basic human right? So I would not say that this is being done to have a better work-life balance. Believe that like we need air, we need food, we need security. So maternity leave is a basic human right. So I would not call it as a work-life policy. That's a necessity. Paid sick leaves, paid annual leaves, right? 4 days, 1 day off a week, right? So which means, rather than having a 5 day, you take 4 day and so on and so forth, right? Paid leave for fathers. Those of us who are fathers, we do understand that we take so good care of our wives and our kids that we need more time off, right? We all know what we are going to do with that time, right, Pati? So our solution is, hey, we are not engaged at work, so let's do less of what we don't engage. Okay, so I guess I missed one slide. Okay, so our solution really is to do less of what we do not enjoy, and then let's again bribe to do whatever less we do that we don't enjoy, right? So that's what is happening. So there are books that say, well, I have a formula that you just have to work even less than 5 hours, right? And you'll be happier, right? And then someone says 4 hour work week, right? And I'll just give an explanation, like extracts of those books, so you could say that, that 4 hour work week guy is saying that how to live more and work less, right? So that's how you end up being homeless, right? Live more and work less, right? So this is you should that's the state of what our current situation, where work-life balance is being abused, misused, and it has come to a point where our traditional solutions are actually not going to fix the problem, right? Because the problem is not that people are working more and that's why they're unhappy in non-work. That's not the correct conclusion. Because our solutions, unfortunately, our solutions are based on this premise. If someone does less work, then someone will be more happy in non-work. And that is a good thing. And that will make us balance and that will make us happy. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more in a little while. So work-life balance, the traditional term, right? It's premised on few things. One is that people can increase their productivity to give them X hours back every day, and that X hours can be spent on non-work, thus making you happy, right? People can get back time if they're more organized and manage their time better, right? If those of you who have read about Einstein, he was extremely disorganized and he had no concept of time management, right? There were days when he would just forget to eat food, right? So this theory that you'll be more successful if you reach a certain balance and you'll be happier and successful, that's not true, really. I mean, I've given you some photos down there. Of course, Qaid-e-Azam, I mean, he was a workaholic, right? He was not happy in marital life. And we can speculate why not. He did end up marrying his best friend's daughter, right? So think about it. You start your marital life at such a interesting grounds where your best friend you end up marrying his daughter. Put yourself in that position. And a lot of you, our friends, are too young for us to marry their daughters, but think about it, right? So you can blame Quaid-e-Azam's workaholic nature for a failed marriage, but I think there's more than what meets the eye, right? There was age difference was one of the reasons. Similarly, next photo, there is a homeless person. He has a dog. He has all the love that he wants. Not successful, and I would say not very happy either, right? So he's definitely probably read that book 4 hours a week, and that's what happened to him. Elon Musk, I don't know, I don't think he's very happy, but he's successful for sure. And then this lady from Thur, right? She looks genuinely happy, right? And she has to travel, I don't know how many kilometers to get water. She's happy. So therefore, the assertion that I'm trying to make is happiness is a little bit tricky. And you can't just say, let's work less, let's have fun at work, and then we'll be happy outside of work. That's not the right conclusion. There's a very good book called Geography of Bliss. And that guy said, I'm going to figure out how you can be happy. So he went around all of the world and trying to figure out which country is happy, how do they keep themselves happy. And his conclusion was for every culture, for every country, the formula for happiness is different. Some people are happier when they work more. Other people are happier just being with family, right? So on and so forth. So that work-life balance, we are trying to do it so that we are happy. That it's a little bit trickier than that. So I believe that we all talk about, we only get one life. Let's live it to its fullest. And if you do live it to its fullest, then one is enough. But if you don't, then 100 won't be enough either. All right. So let me skip that in the interest of time. This I already talked about it, and I think I have 15 more minutes. So I'm going to. So here's the thing: we are all IT people, so I want you to relate to something that you're very well versed with, right? So how many of us still use waterfall methodology to develop software? No one, right? If anyone was, that I'm sure Omer and Essen will kill you, right? And this waterfall methodology, right? It was used to develop software that put man on the moon, right? It was successful in developing and delivering extremely complicated software. It's not that it was useless, it had its worth. Now, after it was originated in 1956, right? After a few years, people started realizing, well, there are some issues to it. So for next 40 years, people kept on using it by patching it, right? So you'll have sashimi model, and you will have IBM's rational unified process, and you will have iterative model, and then you'll have waterfall with risk and various variations on top of waterfall, but the basic fundamental remained the same. So for more than 4 decades, human beings insisted that that's the way to go, and I'm going to fix it, and that it will prove fine. Until one fine day, those 17 gentlemen who actually developed Agile, they were fed up. They were sick and tired. They said, well, why can't we face the reality? We already know it's not working, so why are we still insisting on it? So they looked at this problem in a fundamentally different way, and they came up with something that's called Agile, right? So that's what happened. And I think that now that we have continued to talk about work-life balance, I think we are at a stage where we need to realize that that's the situation. And so I have a radical statement to make after that in a little while, right? So, so I think work-life balance, the traditional term of work-life balance, is now ready for disruption. How does that disruption look like? Now, before I tell you what my counter to work-life balance is, I'm going to kind of throw in few statements. Can you share it again? I'm going to throw in few statements and make you realize that whether you like it or not, you're already doing things which are contrary to the traditional meaning of work-life balance, right? So what we're doing over here is pick up your business card. How many of you have actually, what am I looking at? Yeah. So pick up your business card, and how many of you have your cell phone listed in there? In olden times, in our parents' time, and maybe I would say when I started my career, our business card would have our office phone number, right? And once I'm not in office, you can't contact me, right? So traditionally, even something as trivial, as simple as a business card had work-life balance designed into it, right? Now that you have your cell phone listed on your business contact, do you put your cell phone in your drawer when you leave the office? Well, if you do, make sure it's locked. Otherwise, I'm going to steal it. You take it with you, right? And you have your cell number in your business card. So your wife can call you even when you are at home, at work, and your boss can call you even when you're at home, right? And then we have WhatsApp, right? So there's still things where we say, people say, कि यार आपने तो WhatsApp पे मुझे scene पे ही छोड़ दिया. You know, in WhatsApp you have delivered and seen. So if you see something and you don't respond, people get angry that you saw and you didn't respond, right? That's our life. Similarly, a lot of us take our laptops home when we go, right? Just in case, right? So we're already violating the work-life balance boundary. Uh, mm, in the COVID times, right? We all know a lot of us have taken calls. Those of us who have kids, they have taken calls with kids in our laps, right? We were still working, but we were still taking care of kids, and so on and so forth. There were times, and Umar and I used to work in Techlogics. Umar is still young, much younger than me, but he was fresh graduate, and back in those days, the IT department of the company had a mandate to block all social networks, right? So back in those days, you only had MIRC, chatting, right? So that would be blocked. And then engineers would find a VPN, and that would be blocked. So there was a cat and mouse game going on between people and the engineers and IT department. Nowadays, if I now nobody's there yet, it's still too early. But if I go and I'll see what are the people working on, they would have the ID and coding and all of that, and a server running up. At the same time, their browser would also have Facebook, or the cell phone would have Facebook, right? Now we don't care because that's a reality. So the term I'm proposing is work-life amalgamation. So rather than trying to create a balance by dividing your time between the two, get rid of those divisions, right? Amalgamate the two. The reason is because you're already doing it, right? So what does that mean? So this is my calendar. You would see that majority of action is happening outside of that red window, which is actually the working hours, right? And then this is Essence. You would see that every single day, SN and me, we are violating the traditional sense of work-life balance. And I bet if all of you open your calendars, you would see a similar pattern, right? So, and this happened because that's what our life is. And the more we fight it, right, the more we will become unhappy. All of you are engineers. So I'm going to ask maybe Tayyib this question. If you're working, you worked on those scheduling problem for Walgreens, right? So if you had a problem stuck in your head and you're still working on it, and I come back and I say, look, Tayyib, work-life balance demands, it's 6 o'clock, you have to get away from the office. And I throw you outside the office. Will you be happy? At that moment, no. When will you be happy? And if it takes you till 1 o'clock at night, you still be happy? Right. So the point is, all of us are engineers. We have been in that situation. Imagine yourself when there is a problem stuck in your head and you can't fix it. If you draw a work-life balance line at that moment and say, well, this is my family time, so the hell with the work, and I'm going to now be a good father, good brother, good whatever, good mother, you actually will suck at that. The only time when you will be truly good father, good mother, good whatever, will be once you have solved that problem, right? So what that means is, if it takes you 3 hours of family time to solve that problem, and after 3 hours you have only half an hour left with the family, that half an hour you will be far more productive then those 3.5 hours that you were giving to the family, but all along you were preoccupied with that problem that was bugging you. You would be bitter, you would not be happy, you would not be paying attention. And this is not something you choose. This is the profession we are in. That's our reality. So instead of fighting it, which work-life balance tells you to, work-life amalgamation says, don't fight it, right? Learn to cope with it, create a structure around you that makes you happy, but not happy by drawing 8 hours work and 8 hours non-work, by amalgamating it. So take off the blinders. Those of us who still believe work-life balance works in the traditional sense of word are living in 1980s and are still wearing bell bottoms and have 3 of their shirt buttons open. It's not cool anymore. Work-life amalgamation is cool. You're working, you have a phone in your home, a phone in your pocket, and when you're on a date night, okay, well, stop speculating. I just picked up whatever first image I got. All right. Okay. So you pick up the phone, and the waiter is going to get your food, and you just there's a WhatsApp from your boss. That's okay. It's okay to see it, right? No problem. So life amalgamation is what I'm advocating over here. Uh, so again, I've already talked about it. So here's and I've only 5 more minutes left. So here's the differentiation I create between work-life balance and work-life amalgamation. Work-life balance, in my definition, contradicts the agile spirit. And all of this is my own perception. You can choose to agree with me. You can choose to disagree with me. That is fine. We are not here to prove mathematically who's right or who's wrong. I'm just stating the facts, right? I think work-life balance contradicts the agile spirit, because when you say, I will stop working at 6 o'clock and after that I'll resume working next day 8 or 9 o'clock, you are making a very bold statement, and that bold statement is that nothing will change. Nothing will change my mind, right? Which means you're resisting to change. You're not open to change. And if change does happen, if your boss calls you at home, there is a release, there is a production bug. If that does happen because you're not prepared for it, you'll be extremely angry. And in our life, that does happen, right? So that's why I'm saying work-life balance contradicts the agile spirit, whereas work-life amalgamation, it. Okay, so Omer got caught red-handed. Sorry, Omer, you're on your own, man. And work-life amalgamation embraces the agile spirit, right? In work-life amalgamation, you're not stating any boundaries. You'll say, I'll work when work takes more priority. I'll do that. When family takes more priority, I'll do that. That's how it's going to work for me. Work-life balance compartmentalizes work and non-work. Work-life amalgamation says augment it. So I'm in the middle of my meeting, and and let's say it's 5 minute delayed or something. I send a very lovely "I love you" to my wife, right? That's what work amalgamation says. So work amalgamation says you can take a family call in the middle of the meeting, no problem at all. And similarly, you can take a work call while with your family as well. Work-life balance enforces that boundaries. Work-life amalgamation blurs it. Work-life balance says don't bring your work to home, right? Work-life amalgamation says take your work home, no problem. But at the same time, bring your family matters to work as well, right? No, not an issue. Your family will see work as your enemy. But in work-life amalgamation, your family sees work as part of the family member. So when you're having a dinner and there's this one chair which is free, your family will think that's where your work is sitting, and it is okay, right? Um, Work-life balance doesn't work anymore, right? This is the reality of life. Work-life balance will make you a mediocre worker and will make you a mediocre husband, mediocre father, whatever. Because creating those boundaries is like still trying to do projects with waterfall methodology, right? It doesn't work anymore. So this is not something I came up with, right? This is something that you see happening in your life already, right? So my point is, why are you fighting it? If you continue to fight it, you'll continue to be a bitter husband, bitter father, bitter whatever, and also kind of a guy who's always looking at the watch at after 5 o'clock and trying to run away from work. So you'll underperform in both. Work-life amalgamation creates enough opportunity for you to be exceptional. How you use them, it's up to you. So work-life balance, there's a parallel life. There's work, there's non-work. With work-life amalgamation, you have only one life, right? So you reduce this confusion for yourself. Now, here's the last slide. So if you have, when would you know that, now you are the work-life amalgamation dude? Or I don't know what's the female for dude, but I'm saying dudess, right? So work-life amalgamation, the person who practices work-life amalgamation the way it should be, understands the relative criticality of work and also non-work, right? So please don't misuse my words or twist them in the wrong way. I'm not saying that you don't spend quality time with your family. All I'm saying is, well, your time with the family can only be of high quality if you blur the boundaries between the two, right? So it is important you understand the critical relativity, the relative criticality, and also understand sometimes one takes more precedence than the other, right? What you do at that moment defines whether you have figured out work-life amalgamation or not. And this is very important. Your family needs to know Asim Bhatti. If they don't, this means you're not talking about work enough, right? So similarly, your team lead would also know some intimate details about you because that defines your behavior. Sometimes if you're taking care of a sick parent, sometimes you will be late. Sometimes you will be unresponsive. So if those, because work-life amalgamation is saying blur the boundaries, this means you're going to talk to your team lead about that, right? So it goes both ways. This is what has worked for me and a lot of other people that I researched while preparing for this, right? And I only talked to people who I thought were doing well in their professional life and were also reasonably well placed in their non-professional work as well, right? I researched, observed, analyzed the data of individuals like those, right? So and I think this works. What Rehan is saying is, are we saying there's no boundaries? Well, you looked at my calendar, you pick up your calendar, you guys pick up your calendar. How many of meetings, how many of action actually happens 9 to 5? Not much. If I insist on having a work-life boundary, then this means I'm going to create imbalance for Rehan and Umair and the likes who are in US and Arslan as well. How do you reconcile that? In the earlier slide, I already said, this is specific to IT, right? I'm not talking about banking sector and some other sectors. I'm talking about IT, onshore, offshore model. We work round the clock. If I say I'm not going to take any meeting after 6 o'clock, so my colleagues in US, I'm on this camera or this camera? So my colleagues in US, if I and Essen force the traditional sense of work-life balance, your life will be imbalanced. And if you force balance in your life, you're going to end up hurting a lot of people in GDC. That is our reality. All I'm saying is, just as agile people who came up with agile, those 16, 17 mavericks, they just put down in writing what everyone already knew, right? And that's what I'm saying. We already know that. I'm just putting it in slides. The whole point is stop counting your happiness in number of hours that you spend doing this or that. I am the happiest, when I come back to office, come to home late, like 11 o'clock, and my wife is waiting for me. Her observation is, whenever you come from office late, you are the happiest. And the reason why I'm happy after 11 o'clock is because I feel sense of accomplishment. I did something. All I'm saying is, you can choose not to live like this. But the data that I've showed you earlier means that if you choose not to live like this does not guarantee happiness. And who else is there?
Kashif, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
Ryan? Yes, we can.
So I just want to point out that what you're asking for is a lot of honesty from people if they do go this way. I just want to point that out. It's just
Yeah,
not like, that you're gonna just go off, do your thing during the day, and then slack off the rest of the time. I want to sort of point out that what you're saying is, um, do the work at your own time, but then that involves a lot of honesty for everybody. Because
yes, yes.
right now, nobody's saying you have to work 8 hours. Now you work on your own time whenever you want.
Right. Okay. First of all, I'm not saying that. So, Rehan, yes, you had that point as well. I forgot to address that. Number one, I'm not saying that we get rid of office, right? That's not the point, right? I think we work in an environment where team effort is the productivity increases if we work as team and we are co-located, right? So that's a given. But COVID has told us enough, at least this much, that we can still be productive by being virtually in the same team, not co-located, although co-location does increases the productivity. So what you are pointing to is this honor code system. I think this, well, this is a prerequisite for both the models, right? I could be in office spending 9 hours and still chatting and cheating and not being productive, right? So while honor code system is a must if you're working from home, but people who are slackers can find ways to cheat that even when they're right in front of my eyes, and in the office. So yes, when you have passion about something, then the whole concept of time just blurs away, right? You're just working, you're chasing, and you're happy. Perfect. All I'm saying is that because this is a fact, and because when you're doing that, you are your happiest and hopefully most successful, then let's follow a paradigm that embraces this kind of attitude. Work life balance does not. So if you have work life amalgamation and you know I'm passionate, I'm chasing this, here are a few things that a work life amalgamation practitioner would do. Number one, the person will make sure the family understands. So if you are well focused and connected both with your family and with your work, then your sense of what is important and not will automatically guide you what step to take. But if you come to office without educating your family that it is an important day for you, they're sleeping, you just go out, you're not connected to your family, then of course they will, call you not knowing your reality. So that's what amalgamation means. Amalgamation is not, being anti-family. It means Asim Bhatti is as much part of my family as my kids, right? So that's what I'm saying.